most part, the crawl of Attack of the Clones is pretty good. Unrest in the Senate, there are separatists, the Republic needs an army. So let's address that needs an army thing first. We don't need any of these weird backdoor dealings to get us to the clone troopers. Like, it's impressive that Palpatine and Dooku set up this incredibly elaborate game of mousetrap to get us to those clones, but why not just start with Palpatine talking to the Jedi Council? And remember, Palpatine in my version is now in charge of defense, so Palpatine's telling the Jedi, hey, you're outnumbered, so the Senate's commissioned that a clone army be formed. Naturally, the Jedi are opposed to this, but Palpatine's like, guys, I totally get where you're coming from, but everyone's really freaked out right now by these separatists, and you guys are kind of outnumbered, so we need this army to show that the Republic's still strong. However, at this point, we have the ideological counter to Palpatine in the form of Yoda. Yoda remarks that meeting might with might doesn't necessarily show strength. However, Palpatine's like, yeah, hey, that's super cool and everything, but the Senate's already passed it, so there's like definitely an army. Have fun with that. But even with this clone army, the Jedi aren't to be bested yet. Yoda makes mention that the House of Alderaan has reached out to both senators and separatists in hopes of tabling this in a diplomatic manner. And from there, we transition to a hangar where we join up with Obi-Wan, Anakin, and several other Jedi escorting senators to their ship. Anakin's expressing concern that he might not be ready for such an important mission. Yeah, he's passed all his basic training, but he doesn't feel quite up to snuff, especially whenever handling a lightsaber. But Obi-Wan, who's now warmed up to Anakin at this point, smiles, countering that a lightsaber isn't what makes a Jedi great. I mean, look to Master Yoda. He's one of the greatest Jedi of all times, and he never uses a lightsaber. And he won't, because it completely clashes with everything that his character stands for. The conversation should feel very brotherly. However, this pep talk is cut a bit short when a pilot shouts from down the hangar, "Oh my gosh, you're Anakin Skywalker! I saw your pod race. It was absolutely inspirational, and it made me want to become a pilot. Are you escorting the ship?" And Anakin's like, yeah, actually I am. And the pilot keeps fanboying out. He's like, oh my gosh, I could not believe that in my wildest dreams I'd be flying alongside Anakin Skywalker. The name's Owen Lars. Like I said before, I'm shaking things up a bit. But you know, the term uncle doesn't need to be familial. And in Owen and Anakin becoming closer, it makes sense as to why he would be taking care of Luke. And really, when you look at George's version, Owen's exposure to Anakin is super weird. Just think about this for a second. You're hanging out on your moisture farm when suddenly some dude who you've never met shows up and says that he's the son of the slave that your father bought and married. And when he finds out that she's been kidnapped, he takes off, leaving you to engage in awkward conversation with this overly dressed woman he showed up with, while he mindlessly goes apeshit on a ton of sand people, then comes back with the body, grieves briefly at the funeral, then leaves, and then years later another dude who you've never met shows up with the murderer's son. Would you really take that child in? Anyway, off to Alderaan they go when ambush, enemy separatist fighters. So here we are with our first real dogfight, and this allows for a number of things to happen. Thing one, we get to see that Anakin's a very good pilot, like Obi-Wan told Luke, and thing two, we get to see that they're very close friends who have one another's backs, and there's a fun bit of cross-cutting banter, not just between Obi-Wan and Anakin, but also including Owen, who, despite being paired with a clunky civilian ship, is really managing to hold his own in the fray. You know, we should just be having a fun space battle. So they arrive on Alderaan where they're greeted by Padme and another relationship change, her brother, Bail Organa. Padme is still very much loyal to the Republic, where her brother is somewhat of a separatist sympathizer. However, when he hears of the ambush, Bail laments how fractured the separatists are. You know, just set up his disappointment with leadership a little bit, because then he's going to later be instrumental in the formation of the Rebel Alliance. You know, just give him a bit of an arc in the prequels. Anyway, the separatists don't arrive until the next day. So there's a scheduled banquet for the senators and Jedi, and so Obi-Wan finds himself in the exact place he doesn't want to be. While he's been doing everything to reinforce Anakin, he himself has been feeling a lot of doubt. He's returned to the planet where his master was killed, and he holds himself accountable for Qui-Gon's death, as he did choose to rush to the aid of Padme and not his master. And of course now he finds himself at a banquet sitting opposite Padme, making things only more uncomfortable for him. Anakin, on the other hand, is having an absolutely fantastic time. And now we get to see the flip side of Obi-Wan and Anakin's friendship, as Obi-Wan gets up rather abruptly to leave the conference hall, and Anakin follows, being a concerned friend. While Obi-Wan fully doesn't explain the situation to Anakin, Anakin tries his best to make Obi-Wan feel better, Obi-Wan brushing it off and choosing that he'll just go back to their barracks and meditate. At this point, Anakin's joined outside by Owen, and the two Tatooine boys get a chance to bond as they discuss their differing backgrounds and aspirations. And as they make their way back to the banquet hall, they encounter Padme, who doesn't want to be stuck in a room talking politics the entire time. Because honestly, who'd want a bunch of politics in Star Wars? and she offers to give them a tour of the palace grounds. Meanwhile, while this fun little tour is going on, Obi-Wan is still overrun with grief. Despite his attempt to clear his mind through meditation, flashes of Qui-Gon's death and Maul's face keep appearing in his mind. And then if we want to hold on with the whole premonition thing that George introduced in 2 and 3, we can add an additional flash. The image of a face engulfed in flame. However, it's too difficult for Obi-Wan to make out who it is. He's not sure if it's friend or foe. However, we don't have much time to think on this because rise and shine, the Separatists are here. So Jedi are positioned both inside and out of the conference hall, and proceedings are underway, but immediately get off to a bad start when Dooku asks to talk with the Jedi, not the senators. Meanwhile, Anakin and Obi-Wan are guarding the outside perimeter, and despite every attempt that Obi-Wan is making, Anakin just can't get over how wonderful of a night he had, and unknowingly rubbing salt in the wound by talking about how amazing Padme is. Now cut to the hangar where an unidentified ship is touching down, and the folks in the control tower are like, alright, we don't know who you are, could you please identify yourself? And the ship is silent. Cut back to the conference room where the senators are like, yeah, no, the Jedi don't actually govern, so if you have anything to say, you should be talking to us. The Jedi are just here for protection. And then one of the separatists, and just for sake of specificity, let's say it's one from the Techno Union, because guys, in George's version, there's a Techno Union, is like, what do you mean you need protection? We're the ones who should be afraid of you. You've been attacking us. And then the conference hall just erupts into rabble and finger pointing. Cut back to Anakin and Obi-Wan, Anakin saying something like, and she's really nice too. Back to the hangar, please identify yourself. Again, silence. Back to the conference hall where Padme is reeling. What do you mean that separatists have been assassinated? We haven't done anything of that. You've been the one who have been assassinating our senators. Back to the hangar. Please identify yourself. What do you mean you can't claim responsibility for these attacks? Anakin, can you please just be, please identify? And suddenly the silent ship blasts the control tower. And then everyone realizes that maybe there's a third party involved, and now you've got a bunch of very important people all in one room. As the ship door lowers and Darth Maul steps out. And remember, in my version, Maul was cut in half, but he didn't die, and now he's back with some pretty dope and deadly robot legs. And a legion of battle droids. He ignites his lightsaber, and it's time to get to work. Now the conference hall is an absolute shit show. Everybody is panicking. Dooku dives out of the conference hall as the blast doors close. Obi-Wan and Anakin are rushing to the conference hall and they see Dooku, and Obi-Wan continues after him as Anakin makes his way to the hall. As Dooku takes off, Obi-Wan throws a tracker onto it and he makes his way back to the senators and Anakin. However, Anakin hasn't been able to get into the conference hall because the blast doors are closed. So he's been running around looking for an entrance, and that's when he runs into Darth Maul and all of the droids. Anakin's not eager to fight, but he is noble, so he ignites his lightsaber and goes at Maul. However, Maul knows that Anakin's small potatoes, so he just sticks some battle droids on him and continues on his merry way breaking into the conference hall. Now, despite his lack of confidence, Anakin's actually quite capable with a lightsaber, but the sheer number of droids is absolutely overwhelming. Or they would be were it not for Owen showing up and helping out with a blaster. So as Maul manages to cut his way into the conference room, Anakin can make chase after him. And as Maul advances on Padme, Bale, and several other senators and separatists, Anakin dives in and locks blades with Maul. The two fight briefly, however, it becomes very apparent that Maul is merely toying with Anakin, taking a moment to hiss at him that were he only to embrace that fear, turn it into anger and then hate, he could become far more powerful with a lightsaber, punctuating his point by lopping off Anakin's hand. However, at that moment, Obi-Wan runs in. He locks eyes with Maul, and nothing else matters. It is on. And Anakin gets to see firsthand what a rage-fueled battle looks like. And it's intense. It's epic and acrobatic, however, it's cut short by Palpatine and the clone troopers showing up. And in the crazy crossfire of droid senators, separatist clone troopers, Maul manages to escape. Palpatine now gets to gloat a little bit. Were it not for these clone troopers, this diplomacy would have been a massacre. Several of the senators suggest that there might be a third party in play, but Palpatine and his generals are like, actually, we're thinking that Dooku and Maul might be linked, as, fun fact, Dooku was a Jedi, but then deserted the Council, and we didn't hear from him until he suddenly resurfaced as the voice of the separatist movement. We're thinking, especially based on his radical beliefs that drove him away from the Jedi, that he fell to the dark side and now used the separatists and this event as a platform to deliver a real blow to the Republic. It seems like we're dealing with a serious radical who's an absolute threat. The time for diplomacy's done. Meanwhile, Theed Palace has been converted into a hospital, and Padme finds herself doing her best to take care of the wounded, one of them being Anakin, who she feels absolutely indebted to, as he did save her life. Obi-Wan now seeks out the Council of Yoda and says that the tracker has revealed that Dooku's on Geonosis and requests to go after him. And Yoda's like, are you really hoping to find Dooku and answers for what's going on? Or are you hoping that Dooku and Maul are in fact linked and you're hoping to get revenge on Maul? Because one of those answers is very non-Jedi. And from there we get a larger discussion of the Force and the moral grayness that comes with war, causing many people who were pillars of light to have their judgment clouded by the dark side, and in turn lose their way. Obi-Wan then tells Yoda that he simply hasn't been himself since they landed on Alderaan, and how he's been constantly reliving Qui-Gon's death, and the vision that he saw of the face engulfed in flame. And to that, Yoda's like, okay, change of plans, you are seeking out Dooku. And Obi-Wan's like, wait, what? And Yoda's like, well, Dooku trained Qui-Gon, and you haven't fully let go of your master's death. You're still feeling this grief, and it's bottling up inside of you, and it's starting to cloud your judgment. And from there, before heading off to Geonosis, Obi-Wan visits Anakin in the sickbay. Anakin, of course, wants to join him, but Obi-Wan says that this is something that he has to do alone, and Anakin should rest up and take care of Padme. So Obi-Wan lands on Geonosis, and this allows for some fun Flash Gordon action to take place, as he might encounter some large beast guarding Dooku's fortress. And upon vanquishing the beast, Obi-Wan enters the fortress and encounters Dooku. And Dooku's like, oh hey, it's super cool that you're a friend, and yes, I did train Qui-Gon, but I've got some shit that I need to tell you that's going to blow your fucking mind. So Dooku admits to Obi-Wan that he did leave the Jedi Council because he felt himself being seduced by the dark side. However, he took hermitage in the Outer Rim so he could cleanse his mind of these evil thoughts. And right about the time he started to feel like his old Jedi self, that's when Sidious came a-calling. And Sidious was like, hey guy, I'm a Sith Lord, and as a Sith, I'm kind of just amassing power and trying to get everybody on my side so I can crush the Jedi. And don't tell anyone, but I've also kind of infiltrated and am slowly gaining control in the Senate. But again, like, don't tell anyone. And this offered Dooku just the redemption that he needed, as he rejected Sidious's offer. But as a result, Sidious was like, hey, yeah, that's really cool and everything, but Maul, you better go over there and silence him. And after hearing all of this, Obi-Wan's like, holy shit. And Dooku's like, yeah, that's why I couldn't tell any of the senators, because we don't know how deep this thing goes. Meanwhile, Padme's Florence Nightingaling over Anakin a bit. However, any real hopes of romance are interrupted by Palpatine receiving word from a bounty hunter, and it can be this guy if you really want the fan service. The Dooku's on Geonosis, and so naturally he's going to send the clones on an all-scale assault on Dooku's fortress. Because, you know, this is the best way to showcase the might of the Republic, and not simply ignite a powder keg. Anakin then reveals to Padme that Obi-Wan's on Geonosis, and then Padme's like, well shit, we need to get to Geonosis before the clones do. So the clock's ticking in and an armada's moving, and Owen pilots Anakin and Padme down to Geonosis. So they find Obi-Wan and they're like, dude, we gotta go. And Obi-Wan turns to Dooku and is like, you heard them, let's go. And Dooku's like, no. And everyone's like, and he's like, war's happening. Like, we've failed in terms of diplomacy. This is going down no matter what. But if I die here, that's going to send a far greater message than if I were to run. So with that, the three have to walk back somewhat defeated. Sure, they saved Obi-Wan, but they're not preventing war. And as they board Owen's ship, they get to turn back and see the clone troopers just blowing the shit out of Dooku's place. And again, following the thought that Obi-Wan's our main character, you have to see what this represents. In Episode 1, Obi-Wan loses his master Qui-Gon, who represents the present. In Episode 2, he gets to reconnect with the past a bit, but that then too is taken away from him. So the only thing for him left to lose is the future, and Anakin. But good thing they're great friends, so nothing's gonna happen, right? And as they fly off the surface of Geonosis, Padme can't help but remark that they're just surrounded by darkness and they just seem so alone. And as Anakin comforts her, Obi-Wan remarks that it's not all darkness. There are glimmers of hope all around them. There is light. They just have to find it. And that's how we end.